Singapore's Islamic tradition stemmed from its early history. It was once a center for Islamic commerce and culture. These Islamic influences can be seen in mosques around Singapore. The buildings often use traditional Middle Eastern symbols, such as the dome and ark, even though they have little relevance to the cultural context of Malay Muslims in Singapore. Architect Tan Kok Yeong wanted to break away from traditional motifs of the Middle East and design a mosque that responded to the culture of Malay Muslims in Singapore.
The intention was really to remove the design of mosques in Singapore from the Middle Eastern model, because I think there's no relevance. Because there are universal attributes of Islam, it's not particularly Middle Eastern. And we live in Singapore, so we live in a different region. So we've had to have our own model. So yes, it was quite deliberate.
Kok Yeong studied the history and elements of a mosque. He then designed a building that was less Middle Eastern and more inclusive of other cultures in Singapore.
My intention is a little bit more than just architecture than creating a contemporary mosque. Of interest to me is how can architecture contribute to blurring the boundaries between religions. So I envision a mosque where people could walk in and out, whether you were Buddhist, whether you were Christian, it doesn't matter, that you felt comfortable in this place. Because I remember many years ago before that, I had always stopped just short of entering a mosque. Part of the reason why I myself am hesitant to enter is because it doesn't have anything I can relate to. It's all Islamic, it's even Middle Eastern, to a large extent, if mosques around this region. So I thought that if I created something contemporary, where people can relate to contemporary life, then maybe that boundary will start to diminish.
To blur the boundaries, Kok Yeong designed a mosque with less Middle Eastern Islamic elements. At first glance, there are no familiar Muslim symbols, such as the dome or ark, but look a little closer, and a 33-meter steel minaret comes into view.
Tradition is powerful. People hark back to traditional elements. So there are a few things that one can do. People used to go up there and call for prayer, right? But which you don't have these days, right? So that's now become irrelevant. But that's still maintained, because that to me was still a sort of an urban gesture as a mosque.
Given a modern form, the minaret is made of 10 tiers of curved steel panels telescoping upward, with gaps in between creating a random pattern.
I wanted it to be a piece of art, so that this place would not just be a religious place, it could also be a community place and a place for art. I was trying to avoid direct symbols, in a sense. And we know that for almost every mosque in Singapore, they put this crescent and a star on top of the minaret or some part of the building to signify that that's a mosque. The plan form of the minaret was really a crescent. In fact, if you look at the plan form, it's two crescents coming together. So I was trying to convince the clients that this was already the crescent, and all I needed was a star. But that didn't go down too well. So at the end of the day, I still had to design a very modern, sort of three-dimensional crescent and star. And I had it, instead of at the top, which I think would be quite inappropriate, at the side, so that the main minaret sculptural form would still dominate. If you had it at the top, then that would become the focus. So I didn't want that. I wanted the sculptural form to be the focus, and not the crescent and the star.
Kok Yeong's artistic interpretation of Islamic culture is continued in his design of the arabesque.
The arabesque is basically the creation of third or more patterns using two patterns that are overlaid over each other. It can be very complex. It has multi-centers because you can place your eye on one pattern and see one pattern, but if you move your eye, you see another pattern. So it's actually very complex. That's supposed to mirror, in fact, the Quran, and you can start looking at the pattern from one end and end up in the same place, just like the Quran. You can start reading the Quran from any page, and end up in the same page, and it'll still be coherent. So that's the whole concept of there are many parallels.
Two layers of geometric patterns superimposed on each other create depth. To suit the tropical climate, the porous screen walls allow sunlight and air to filter through, creating a feeling of openness. As a result, additional patterns of light and shadow are cast onto the floor.
See, these complex details actually mesmerizes the mind. So that you go there, your attention is drawn to those craft or patterns or whatever. And that to some extent calms your mind because you're then not distracted by other things, other worldly things. You're just focusing on things, trying to decipher a pattern. I don't think so much about the visual impact. I think about experiential impact.
Like the design of the arabesque, the abolution space was designed to be aesthetically experiential. Kok Hyang wanted to create more ceremony for the abolution process.
In the Ashafa, I thought it was important to play that up, that it was actually a very important part of the process. So we thought that it should be a nice place, there should be water because that's a cleansing element. So we had in fact pools with light coming down so that you have a proper ambience to perform your cleansing. And then you walk up this main staircase. As you walk up the main staircase, you see the base of the arches. And that brings your eye towards the mihrab wall in front. So this is an experience where the mihrab wall is in front of me and it's canted towards him. What's his feeling? That sort of thing, rather than a visual thing, And the natural light brings about a certain ethereal quality. I think those are experiential because all your senses come into being. It's not just seeing.
Kok Hyang strove to connect the worshippers emotionally to the mosque with his experiential design. However, he was also aware of the need to be functional. As a place for communal worship, it is important for the prayer hall to be free of obstructions. As such, the prayer hall is completely column-free. In place of columns, concrete arches span 20 meters across the hall, bearing the weight of the 3 stories above.
We originally would have needed 22 columns by the side, but because of the arch, the way it's transferred, the structure is only met the ground at only 8 points, so there actually need 8 columns as such. And that basically frees up a lot of space, creates a lot more open area.
The arches also direct the worshippers' attention to the central focus of the mosque, the mihrab wall. Beams of sunlight stream in from the top of the atrium, drenching the white marble surface of the mihrab, creating an ethereal experience for the devotees.
When we started building mosques in Singapore, not many people knew very much about building mosques, and I think the model to use was Middle Eastern model. So you had the Safavid models, you had the domes, you had the 4 minarets, you had basically everything that tells people that it's a mosque, but those were Middle Eastern ideas. I think therefore it's relevant in Singapore to say what are the universal qualities of Islam, what are our own cultural attributes that you want to infuse into the mosque, and then start thinking about where this brings us. I think that in that sense, Ashafa was an experiment in that.